Hello and welcome back. Today we've got the week number 3 of the June kit, and we've got a fantastic project for you. It is the landscape this week, and if you haven't been following us, then you would know right here we had the week 1 project, the dragonfly, the week number 2 of the June kit, the manatee, and of course now we are moving on here to the landscape. So again, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started here today. Now, of course, if you are a beginner to stained glass, the first thing you're going to need is to get your tools. And every single project starts with a pattern. So if you are not, familiar with stained glass, we always need a pattern to actually cut our glass with. You can have one traced out like this, and you can cut the pieces and glue them down to your glass, or I use an adhesive-backed vinyl template. And so again, hello to everyone in the live stream here, Mary, Cindy, and we have another Mary and Homemade. Thank you all for joining us today. And so we're going to go ahead, and the next tool you're going to need is a glass cutter. There's many different types. I like to use the pencil grip myself. And so some other tools you're going to need are some grosers. And so what we're going to do first is take our adhesive-backed vinyl template and get to placing them onto our glasses here. Now, our pattern here, it's got some trees, a moon, and a mountain in the background. So what I am intending from our June kit here, it came with these 4 glasses. Came with a green, a gray, a blue, and a clear textured. For the moon, we're going to be doing the clear textured. For this side of the mountain, it's got the moon on it. So we're going to be doing the bluish glass. It's kind of like the lighter side. And then the right side, we're going to do the gray. It's kind of the shadowed side. And then for all of these, we're going to be doing the green trees here. And this is actually also a part of the gray part of the mountain. So that is essentially what we're looking for here. Now we're going to want the direction of this blue to be like this and the direction of the gray to be kind of like that. So we're going to go ahead and place all of our pieces down onto our pattern here. And so, as you can see, these peel up really easily. It's just an adhesive-backed vinyl that we can use as a cutting template. And the moon here, it probably is not going to matter too much. I'm going to go ahead and do it straight up like this as far as the direction of the texture. And, oops, you know what? I actually want to leave these. So what I personally like to do is all of our kits, they come with 2 patterns. And so I like to leave the one that's all traced out. I like to trace them out, leave that one in place, and then go back and kind of put the pieces on that side. And I like to peel from this side. So again, this is our green glass here. It's got a textured side, so we're going to want to make sure to put it on the smooth side, because anytime that you cut glass, you want to cut glass on the smooth side. So we're just going to go ahead and start placing these pieces here, and I've got this direction marked right here. So I'm going to keep trying to continue that throughout the entire piece here. And so this is a pretty good beginner pattern here. It's got a lot of straight lines, so definitely favorable for a beginner on this kit. And of course, if you're not familiar, this is a part of our weekly live stream every week at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. We have the free Stained Glass Mastery community classes. And so this is one of those today. So thank you all for joining us. And we will continue on here, placing all of our little pieces down for our trees. And then we're going to get to cutting everything out. So I'm just making sure as I place them down to keep that orientation consistent. And you want to place them in such a way that is pretty efficient with your glass usage, because you can use this for other projects. You don't want to just put your pieces right in the middle. You want to put them to a place where you can cut them kind of efficiently, and that way you'll have more glass for other projects. And so with all of our stained glass kits, you can do them multiple times if you wanted, or you can just save the glass for a different project. And each kit we try really hard to make sure that we use different glasses. So if you buy the kits and you keep up with it every month, then you will have different colors to choose from. And you'll kind of slowly build up your inventory for different projects that you might want to do. All right, so this one is kind of a funky shape, one of the harder shapes to cut. We're going to want to try to follow a direction here. So I kind of like this part. It's got a little bit of that nice direction, so we're going to do that right there. All right. So almost got all of our pieces. It's going to be the dark side of the mountain, so we're going to want to continue that still. And what I might be able to do, a little bit of a tricky thing here, I've got this straight edge on here. I might be able to use the edge of this glass as one of our cuts. So then we don't have to cut that. So there we go. I can kind of put that on the edge, and that way we have that already pre-cut. And so I'm probably going to go ahead and put this one right here, and that way I can just kind of cut this piece off. There we go, just like that. And our last piece to place is the moon. So we've got this textured clear glass. It's perfect for that cratery moon surface. And it will read as white when it's it's clear, but it'll kind of read as white up against these other colors. So now that we've got all of our pieces placed, we can go ahead and grab our glass cutter. I normally like to kind of keep a little plastic bottle with a foam saturated with oil. And hey, Ice, thanks for joining. This will be a nice cutting refresher for you. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and switch over here to our free camera. It'll give you a little bit of a better idea. And so I hold the glass cutter as it's comfortable for you. I normally put my middle finger on the cutting tip, and because it has a little bit of play in this rotational play here. So I like to stabilize it in one direction, secure it with my left thumb, and sometimes I'll even push it along with my other hand if I kind of want to get that really good consistent motion here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right here on the edge of this vinyl template, and I'm going to kind of continue this into both pieces. And as you're cutting, you want a nice consistent sound and pressure. And that's pretty much it right there. Now, once you have your score, you can break it with your hands. That's normally what I like to do. If possible, you can also tap it through. You want to be careful not to be cutting yourself. So this one, it didn't break as easily as I was hoping. So what I like to do is just take the back of the cutter, and you can tap that score through the glass. And this is kind of a long piece here. So, well, there you go. So once you start to tap it, it'll kind of separate that gloss, and then it's much easier to just separate quickly. And Mary Beth mentioned that she uses a cotton ball with her oil, and that's how she can keep that easily applied to the cutter. So that's a good tip if you want to try that. And so what I like to personally do is separate all of the glasses before we start really cutting into the shapes. Now this one I was able to pretty much get both cuts on the separation, so this one is ready to start grinding. This one we're going to go ahead and score with the rest of them. First, what I want to do is get everything scored, separated, and then we can kind of go through and do the really close cutting. So for this piece, I'm going to kind of probably sort of cut along this edge and just bring it back, and then I'll have the most of the glass still ready for use. So let's see if I can give you a little bit of a different angle here. especially whenever I am cutting these sort of, freehand cuts. It helps me to not have to worry with my right hand about pushing the cutter, and I can sort of just worry with my right hand about doing the right shape, and my left hand can be more for pushing it forward for that consistent, even pressure. So now that I've got this scored, I'm going to take the cutter here, tap it from the back side, and see how it comes apart just like that. That's what we want. So we can get this out of the way now. And we've got our moon glass here. Now this one I'm probably just going to kind of do a quick cut right here, and we'll come back later on and do all the finished scoring. And with these clear textures, you can really see that the glass sort of starts to separate when you tap it through. All right. And so our last one are the tree glasses here. I'm going to kind of probably do one swift cut this way. And you get a smooth arc in your cut whenever you're moving your elbow. So, you want to move this elbow, and that's what it'll give you as you push it, that kind of nice and free, smooth cut, if you will. And so if you don't want to tap it, you can kind of use the grosers to sort of separate the glass a little bit. So you can kind of grab it and just do that pressure. Let's see. Sometimes when they're a little bit big, the grosers suffer a little bit, so I'll use my hands to kind of break it apart. So I'm going to get this out of our way. So this is pretty much all of our glass that we're going to be using for this little landscape project here. So now we're going to go through and score everything. This one, there are so many straight lines that I'm not too worried about compromising, a break into another piece right next to it. So we can pretty much just go through and get all these cut down nicely. At least we can do one in between each piece just to keep, trying to separate all of them. And once we kind of break those all apart, we can go back, finish all the scoring, and then do all the breaking at once. It's kind of how I like to do it. And this one, we can just do both these cuts on this big triangle here. And if you don't get it perfect the first time, it's okay. We can go back and grind it down. So now now that I have these all pretty much scored, I'm gonna separate them here. And you just want to be careful not to cut yourself. And if you have any questions, be sure to ask me here in the chat. Be sure to answer them here in real time. So now we've got everything separated. We want to go ahead and do all of our finished scoring. Oh, do we separate this one yet? I don't believe we did. All right. So now everything is separated. We can go ahead and do our finished scoring here. So let me move everything over here. And like I said, tons of straight lines and a decent mix of curved. And the kit comes with tons of glass, so you can have several tries. You won't have any problems. Unless you just really sort of mess up the glass a lot, you really should not have too many problems with getting, a few tries to get your project right here. So again, doing all these little score lines, pushing with my left thumb to just sort of move this piece of glass along. Move the scoring tool along the piece of glass smoothly. Applying downward pressure with my right hand and a little bit of forward motion. And Mary Beth asked where to find a hand file. You could get that from Home Depot or Amazon.com. Or any hardware store probably. They normally have those hand files in any hardware store normally has something like that. It's probably where I would check first. Now this is a little bit of a interior curve here. We have to be careful with that. We might have to do a few shallower cuts in order to get that to work out. But we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there. We'll finish all the scoring for now. And I'm getting a few little glass shards, so now I like to grab my table brush, just sweep those off. And sometimes if your glass is cut very well and it's got a nice 90-degree angle to it, you don't necessarily need to grind. I normally end up grinding everything just for continuity's sake, and that way I know that all the edges are well prepared for the foil. So again, pretty much straight lines here, pretty easy to do, especially when you have these little vinyl templates as a guide. Now right here we have a really thin piece of, a really thin, fine point here. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to get that in the end, but we're going to do our best here. And we'll kind of go over that as we get closer to it. I have a few more questions coming in here. Different grits on the hand file or a fine grit? Well, they do have different grits, sort of the knurling, or I'm not really sure exactly what the term is for that, sort of grittiness on those metal files. But yeah, I think they do have some, and probably you're going to want a finer one, or else it'll just chip up the glass. It's not a big deal too much. You can always grind it down to sort of smooth that edge, but you do run that risk of chipping up the glass. And as Mary Beth mentioned, the scoring circles is the hardest. For everyone, it's kind of an awkward thing to do. You really just have to take your time, and even we can look at the one I did here. So even it's not going to be perfect. It's going to have a lot of rough edges. That's just where the grinder comes in. You just get it as close as you can. Go back, break off along that score. And it's not going to look perfect. We can look at the close camera here. See, it's not quite perfect here. It's got a few little shards here and there, but we're just going to go through and grind that down, and it will work out just fine. And there's really no substitute to practice. And as good as your cutting will come out is kind of going to determine how good the rest of the project comes out. So you want to definitely take your time with it. Now right here on this part where it's next to this curve, I am going to want to do some shallower cuts here. So let me go ahead and move this stuff out of the way. Sweep that right off onto the ground there. And so we're going to take this, we're just going to kind of split this in half, and it'll be much easier when it comes time to actually remove that. So I like to use these mini grosiers. They don't cover as much surface there as the wider ones. See how they're just a little bit smaller? This one right here that I'm tapping, it's a little bit smaller than this bigger one. So it's easier to kind of get into those curved areas. So we're just going to slowly try to remove down to our score line. And you can just get a little bit more precise with these. And if we get too close to this really thin spot right here, I'm probably going to opt to just grind it down instead of, this is a little bit tougher on the glass. It's more likely to break in a negative way. So we're just kind of chewing it down, getting a little bit poked here. Get that out of me. And then this, it's not going to be perfect this way, but let's see here on this close camera. See, it's close enough we can grind that down. So that is kind of our goal here. So I'm going to put this one aside. And we're going to get to breaking the rest of these. There we go. Another piece ready for grinding. Okay, let's see. And sometimes if the piece gets a little bit too difficult to hold on to, you know, you're worried about cutting yourself, you can grab the other piece with a different pair of grosures. So that's, you know, always an option here. Like this one, I'm going to go ahead and grab it with this pair and see how I just feel a little bit safer. And it actually broke a little bit in a disadvantageous way there, so I'm going to need to recut this piece right here. See how we have a little bit of a weird break there. So I'm going to, actually, let's see if we can. No, it's not going to fit on any of the pieces we have. Oh, actually, it just might barely fit onto here. If it does, it's going to be very close. Let's see how we're looking here. Yes, it will fit on here just barely. So what we're going to do, let's see here. Just like that, so we can kind of repurpose it onto a different spot. Now we're going to want to cut this one up here. Let's just see if it's going to separate properly. If not, we're going to have to grab a different piece. Okay, so that looks good. So now we should be able to, it's such a small area here, I'm just going to grosier it down and finish it off on the grinder. So sometimes glass just kind of breaks in an awkward way. There's not much you can do about it. All right, there we go. That one is ready for grinding. I think I might have forgot to score this side, but it's okay. We can just grosier it down. So this is why I like to kind of do all the breaking at one time, because it creates a bit of a mess. And if you're having to sweep up after every single piece, you know, you score it, break it, sweep it, score it, break it, sweep it. It's a lot of extra steps. So this way you can make a lot more progress here. And we just take the grosiers and continue on. There we go. If you feel like you need to wear some gloves, do it. Even I get poked and cut every so often, so it's a little bit of a stubborn thing on my end. I like to try to work without if I can, and hope for the best. But there you go. Got just a few more pieces here, and we're saving the best for last. This piece, we're going to go ahead and break this off. Let's see how this goes. And then what I think we're going to do here is, again, score this closer, and that'll give us a little bit more leverage here. Let's see, I'm actually going to grab my little trash can thing here. This is quite a bit of debris. There we go. Okay. And so we'll sweep off any little fine debris left. And we are going to, this is probably going to be the hardest piece. So we're going to want to kind of cut it a little bit closer. And I think that'll be easy to break off. And now really it's just this part that we're a little bit concerned about. Not too bad though. So we'll just take the mini grosiers And it'll get us right there. And we can clean that rest of that up on the grinder. So now all of our glass is scored. Let's go ahead and move this into our field of view here. So we've got, again, all of our glasses cut and ready to be grounded down. So I keep everything in this little, or the water I should say, in this little bottle, the little hole poked in the top of it. And then I like to saturate the sponge. And that's what kind of keeps this wheel, you know, it keeps it with the water. And so we're going to go ahead and switch over here and see the next step for the grinding. So we're just taking it down all the way to that template. And this is really another big reason why I love this template. See that? How we can just grind it right down to it. Now I know this thing's going to fit pretty much perfectly. And we're going to do a fit test after we've got everything all cut down. I'm sorry, foiled, everything foiled, and you're going to see how well everything fits here. So this is pretty much the way I like to do this. And even if it maybe seems like it doesn't need to be grinded down, I still like to a little bit. I just, you know, makes me feel a little bit better. Everything is all grinded down, and then we'll go through and clean everything up when the time comes here. So that's the first piece. And see that? We're just cleaning all that up right up to that white template. And I find that these templates stick very well unless they're not really adhered very well on the first round. And when you go to grind it, it could get a little bit of water up underneath it, and then it comes undone. So that is less than ideal. I'm going to set this down. And it's a little bit easier with two hands. Another piece. Got our little moon piece here. And hey, Cynthia, thank you for joining us. So we're going to take this all the way around. There we have it. And I'm going to add a little bit more water. Whenever you start to see that the kind of glass dust starts to come off, that's when you want to add some water. And this is the piece that I was talking about. You really want to kind of just finish it off on the grinder, because that thing is just going to break, that little tip, if you try to get it too close. So I'll normally just finish those off right here on the grinder, get it right up against that pattern, and call it good like that. So that might be a spot that you find yourself having a lot of trouble with. And if you kind of do it on the grinder, you'll probably find it to be a little bit easier. Maybe a little bit more time, but you know, it seems like it might be a little bit more time, but in the long run, you're going to save time breaking pieces and all that, recutting it. So that's how I like to do it. And continuing on here, got all these pieces to grind down, all these little tree pieces. The hardest pieces are pretty much done. So again, this is one of those projects that's really, you know, not not a bad one for a beginner. And if you're here with us last week, you saw us make the manatee, and I was pretty happy with that manatee. I enjoyed making that. I like the way it came out. And I hear that there's a place in Florida you can actually swim with these manatees. I think they're very friendly. So that's pretty cool. All right. Now, if you are familiar, I believe with the, was it the April project? I think that we had made a landscape in the past also. So we can kind of check that out here. And now that I'm thinking about it, we'll kind of compare the two at the end, and we can kind of see the differences between the two landscapes. Because there are some pretty stark differences, some similarities, of course, but some differences that are worth noting, and you can kind of use glass differently, and it's kind of going to be demonstrated here between those two. And yep, Spooky, yeah, said they're likely not to eat you. I think that's true. They look very friendly. Mary said that the manatee was cute. Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed that one. And I believe we have more fish coming up. I know we recently released the, let's see, May, June, July kit. I don't remember. I think there's at least one fish in there, but I don't remember exactly. We released up to, I think there's about 13 kits that were released through, I believe, June of next year. So several different patterns and many different subjects. A few repeat subjects. I know we've got some flowers, you know, in more than 1 month. Of course, we have some fish. I think we've got some like mockingbirds and cardinals. So we have some different birds. And some of my favorites are the oh gosh, what are they? The pancakes and the donuts and like cup of coffee, stuff like that. They're pretty cool. I think that y'all will enjoy all of those. And of course, if you're not familiar, we do have a free stained glass mastery community with a community of like-minded artists where you can share projects, ask questions, and we've got tons of free resources that you might find helpful. So if you're interested in that, I will be sure to leave a link in the description. You can check that out. But back here to the grinding, we've got tons, not too many pieces left. We've got about one more after this, the large triangle, and then we're ready to start cleaning everything up in preparation for our foiling. And I do have some good news to deliver in that we are kind of in some of the final stages of bringing in a couple of the new foilers that I mentioned a few times here in the last few weeks. So that I am pretty excited for. And it's going to be a bit of a trial for us. We're going to bring one in, check it out on the stream here. And I'll give you my honest thoughts. And we'll see if it works out for us. We're going to bring in 10 units to start. And we're going to see how well it works. It looks like a pretty robust system. And so I'm pretty excited about it. But again, you're going to get my sort of live take on what I think about it. I'm not sure exactly when yet. I'll have to, we're still finalizing all those details, but it is in the works here. So instead of using our old trusty setup here, we're going to give that a try. Hopefully, probably not next week. Hopefully the following week is what I'm sort of hoping for. So we've got all of our pieces here. They are all grinded and ready for cleanup. And it's kind of weird to look at them like this. It's not, I don't know, I guess they're all here. Let's just check really quickly, make sure I didn't throw one away or something. Almost looks like we're missing some, but maybe we're not. I guess I could also just count them really quickly, and that'll give me a good idea of what's going on here. Let's see. We'll just get all of these placed on here really quickly. There we go. Okay, they're all here. So we can go ahead and peel these all off and get to cleaning them up. So if you want to reuse them, you can try to. Probably not a bad idea. Can't guarantee that they'll work, an infinite number of times, but, you might get a few uses out of them. And I think the best thing for me to do would be to start from the far right if you want to try to reuse these, which I might as well see what I can do. I'm already getting a little bit lost here. See how close I get. We can already kind of see some of the colors. And I think this one's going to look pretty dang nice. Looks like everything's pretty much fitting properly. Pretty close enough for our little paper salvage here. And so part of our mountain is, oops, put the glass there instead of the. So part of our mountain here is the bluish glass, which is because we have a snowy mountain over there. And it, kind of maybe, it's a little bit bluish because it's nighttime. Okay, so we've got all of our pieces here. We need to clean these up very well. We've got a lot of this gloss dust all over them. See, it's all over my hands a little bit. So we want to take our favorite blue glass cleaner. And of course, we want to grab our rags here. And I can't use it unless it is a old Cavallini shirt here. So those are the best rags. And, I forgot to mention, too, we are getting some new shirts soon, which I tried to make an order recently, had a little bit of an issue with the manufacturer processing that order. But we are going to get some shirts soon. I'm going to be debuting them. I think we've got, let's see, a couple designs. I think it's at least three. Ready, maybe 4 ready. I forget exactly how many. I think it's just 3. And we're going to be doing, I think, 1 or 2 more. And so that's, that will be, I'm probably going to work on that this week so I can get them in hopefully for next week. I think that'll be a fun thing to do each week, debuting a new shirt. And yes, very high-end rags we've got here. I've got probably about 10 pounds worth of these old shirts. And they help out. They help out. I know we recently purchased a pallet of rags. It was 800 pounds of rags. For our, we've got some pretty big projects going on right now, and it's a little bit of a hassle having to get rags so often, so just ordered a pallet. Hopefully that'll last a little bit longer, But for these purposes, a couple old t-shirts will do just fine. There we go. Get it all cleaned up. And you don't want to skimp out here. You want to take your time. Make sure that your glass is all cleaned up. Here's that little tip that we saved. And to be honest with you, it's going to be mostly covered in foil anyway. So if we were not able to save it, to be honest with you, not the end of the world. Not the end of the world. But, you know, we got some integrity in our work, so we're gonna do our best here. If we can, we might as well. If we can't, it's not the end of the world. Go ahead and get a little more of the cleaning solution here. Get that all saturated up. There we have it. And if a little bit of solution is left on there, it'll probably be dry by the time you are ready to actually start the foiling. So if that happens, that's all right. Just getting all this debris off as well as we can. Now we're going to be using a 7/32 foil today. And we are going to be using the silver backed, which means no patina today. We are just going to be leaving it as the silver finish. Now, of course, you can choose to patina if you wish. In this case, we are using a clear glass, so you will see that silver through that glass. And for that reason, you're going to want to make sure that you use the correct backing with the end result in mind. So if you want to patina it black, use the black backing. If you want it to remain silver finish, use the silver backing. If you want it to be a different color like copper or something, use that bare copper backing. And if you're not sure, the black backing is a pretty safe bet for any of the options. It'll kind of blend with all of them. So that's kind of what I would do if I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do yet. Now we've got a little bit of a mess here. Let's go ahead and sweep all this debris off. And we are going to move on to the next stage of foiling. So this is kind of the setup we've been using. It's just a 7/32 Creators foiler on a 2x4 with the blue caddy. Got a few different finishes in here. I keep my fid, some lead dikes to cut the foil, and an X-Acto blade to trim it down. So that's kind of the setup we've been using for all these projects. I've been doing a lot of these projects here with this setup. I think this was the April kit. We had 4 right here. Had the May kit right here. We have a few different scrap projects that we did. And so it served us well. It's been a great little setup here. And Leo, you will definitely be able to tell, especially through a clear glass. You'll be able to see that different color. So let me give you an example. I'll just cut down this. Cut this piece down right here. Now, you see how you can see that black backing through it? If you use a copper finish is kind of the worst one, if I'm being honest with you. That copper backing, the bare copper backing. Let me just show you. I mean, it just shines bright like a diamond. It's very bright. Having a little technical difficulty over here with it. Okay, there we go. All right. Almost never use this one. I actually don't even have I do have a copper patina actually. So let's just see how this looks. And I do have a full guide that will show you kind of exactly what I'm talking about here too. So again, here you can see right through that into that copper finish. And if you had black patinaed solder and it's all coppered through here, it'll just stick out like a sore thumb. Really stick out. So I'll leave that right there. Okay, so we are using the silver backing today. Go ahead and pull a little bit out. Cut that down. All right. So we'll start with this piece here. We'll go ahead and stick this through, and it just goes right into that groove, centers the glass perfectly on the foil, and it just applies it nicely and evenly. I'll cut it down, fold all the edges over here, and then we can take a look at how it looks. So you see we've got a nice, pretty even foil on both sides. And again, you can see through to that silver. Maybe a little bit hard to see on camera. Let me see if I can show you on the close camera over here. See that silver in there? If you have it as a black finish, it's gonna look off. It's gonna look off. So we're gonna set this aside to be doing the burnishing here shortly. And we are going to get all these foiled up quickly. So again, this foiler really does some magic when it comes to taking care of these perfectly foiled pieces every time. And I'm almost going to miss this whole thing a little bit. I mean, we're going to see if this other solution is as good. I mean, this thing I've been just so pleased with. The long-awaited foiler. And I'm not going to spoil any details about it yet. And to be honest with you, I don't even know if I'm going to like it more than this foiler yet. But we'll see. We'll see. The only problem with this foiler is that it takes a little bit of effort to kind of set one up. And, you know, a lot of people, they don't want to do that. They just want to have a solution ready. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if that's what the people want, I'm going to try to see if it's out there. So I just like to kind of fold it over, zip it up to the next corner, and then fold that corner over, just zip it up, and that's how I do it. And now that we have gone through and grinded all the edges, we don't have to worry too much about that sharp edges cutting us. You know what I mean? So that's good. So that's a little side benefit. You know, when you're sort of pushing this foil down, you know, you're putting a lot of pressure right here on this corner of the glass. And if it's not grinded down, it could cut right through that foil and slice your finger a little bit. And let's be honest, you're working with glass here, so it's going to happen a little bit. I think I've been pretty fortunate actually on this stream that I have not had to use any Band-Aids, but that doesn't mean I don't keep them nearby. See that? I always keep some right here, right next to me, and I actually just knocked that thing off. There we go. So, you know, I've been fortunate not to have a problem. Now that I've said it, probably it's going to happen here momentarily. But, hey, at least I've got some Band-Aids right there. And I can just keep on going. There we go. And if we have any little flaws in our foil, we can normally fix that in the burnishing stage, trimming it with an X-Acto blade or adding on a little repair. So it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. You know, I would rather you do 100 pieces imperfectly than trying to keep doing only one piece perfectly. You know, you're going to get way more out of getting more reps in, more repetitions of the same thing, instead of analyzing, how am I going to do this? You know, how do I do this? Watching videos, thinking about it. Doing it's really the only thing that's going to kind of get you to improve. So if you're sort of on the fence about it, I would kind of make that plunge, and you know, that's going to give you the best benefit over the long period. If you're thinking about yourself, oh, you know, do I want to do this? Does it look like this is something I want to do? Well, you're never going to know by watching videos, thinking about it. You really just have to try it. So I do encourage you, and I think, you know, if you're an artistic person and you like to do art and, you know, different crafts and stuff like that, I think you will like it. But if, you know, if it sounds daunting to you to be, you know, it takes some effort to cut glass and, you know, make these projects, think about what subject you want to do. Maybe it's not for you, but if it seems like something that, you know, you like to do, art especially, and crafting, there's a good chance this is something you're going to enjoy a lot. Okay, there we go. And before you know it, we're almost done here with the foiling. And let's see here. Then we'll be on to the burnishing. And sometimes these pieces get a little bit small for your hands. You just got to take your time with it. There we go. And this green gloss has a little bit of a texture, so we're going to have to be a little bit extra careful when we're burnishing that side of it, because it can rip that foil when there's some texture like that. And I think it's going to be all right, but we'll see. We'll keep our little foiler out just in case we need to do some quick repairs. There we go. And we've got one more piece here. This is the moon side of the mountain. I remember because it's a little bit lighter than the other one. And as you can see, big pieces and small pieces foil just as well in this little setup here. In order to get that foil to overlap well, you kind of have to fold it down where you started. So that's why I fold that down every time. Okay. Now these curves can be a little bit tricky here. We're probably going to need a little repair right here. Let's see what happens. You just want to put some downward pressure on there. And yeah, we did get a little rip right there. Not the end of the world. We can do a little repair. So what I like to do is do all the burnishing, and then we can go back and do that little repair and burnish that down too. You don't want to put a repaired foil over an unburnished foil. It'll just be a recipe for a little disaster later on. So we've got all of our pieces right here foiled. I'm going to put this to the side, and we're going to start burnishing. So I use this kind of white fid here. So I like to do the edges first. And we'll go ahead and start with this piece that we're going to do the repair on while it's kind of fresh in our mind. Do the edges first, and then go back and do the faces kind of towards the middle of the piece like that. You don't want to do it from the middle out. You're going to knock the foil off. And you'll find out pretty quickly if you're doing that, the mistake that you're making. So we'll just make sure to push that foil down. Pretty good pressure, not too much or it's going to be damaged. Looks like I might be having a little bit of an issue here on this spot. I'm going to probably peel this up. And then refoil this spot. Like something a little bit weird was happening to it. Go ahead and refoil this. And when I do this, anytime I'm overlapping, I like to do it at least 1/4 inch, if possible. That normally seems to do the trick. Alright, so we can get back to this. Edges first, try not to trap any air in there when you start to burnish down the faces. There we go. So again, not a whole lot to this, mostly trying to, and if you do a little bit too hard, you see you have a little piece will come off, so do a little repair right there. Finish doing the burnishing here first, and then we'll do that little repair, in case we have a few others that pop up. And as you burnish it down, you'll sort of see the foil kind of take the shape of that glass. Kind of flattens out if it's flat, or it'll kind of take the ripples of the texture if it's got that texture. So we've got a few little spots to fix here. Normally, I'll just take a little bit from the foiler and it's hard to tell, we've got a little rip right here. So I'm going to just kind of overlay this like that. I'm going to cut this down, fold it over, and then I can cut that with the X-Acto blade. Let's see here. I have a little spot right here that got damaged. So we'll do the same thing there. Burnish that down, then we can cut it down a little bit. Burnish this down, and we can cut it down. And then I'll just take my X-Acto blade. This is kind of a must-have, I should say, for copper foils. Just trim that down. There you have it. And that piece is ready. Oh, we have a little bit of a break right there too. We're going to want to take care of. we're cutting it, we just want to try to keep a nice smooth transition between the two existing foil surfaces. Make it look like nothing even ever happened. And sometimes you'll have the same issue whenever you overlap them. At the overlapping points, you might have to put a little bit of extra foil there too. Or trim it down, I should say. Alrighty. Move on to the next. So we've got our little tree piece here. And this piece is a little bit textured, so this white fit, it's got this flat surface. You can kind of work that foil into all the divots of that texture. Now, if you're using something rounded like a Sharpie marker or something like that, it's not going to fit in those little divots of the texture. So this is a pretty good, you kind of want something with a flat end that you can insert into all that texture. And right here we've got a little bit of a non-smooth transition. I'll show you over here on the closed camera. See that right there? So I'll just take the X-Acto blade, just trim that down just enough. It'll make it look a lot smoother. And there you have it. Just go ahead and burnish all this down. This is another pretty important step here. If you don't do this really well, you could compromise your finished product. Now, a tiny little panel like we're doing, it's not a huge deal. But if you're doing a much bigger panel, then you're especially gonna, it'll be very obvious and clear very quickly because of the weight of all that glass and solder and everything, that you're having a bit of a problem. There we go. And stained glass, it's really got sort of a few different sides to it. It has a bit of an artistic side and a craftsman side. And they are kind of intertwined. The artistic side is especially evident during the glass selection stage, the pattern creation, the selective cutting if you're trying to get a certain look, from a texture or color inside of a glass. And then the craftsman side is more of the, the foiling and the soldering and the appearance of the solder and how well it holds together over the long period, stuff like that. So it's kind of a two-sided coin to master so that you've got a good finished product all the way around, from the actual design to the way it holds up over the long period. So both very important there. Doing the little moon here. And especially on these curves, they can get kind of crinkled up, this foil. So you kind of have to spend a little extra time just making sure everything is going to have a nice appearance when it, when it comes time to do the soldering. I find that I probably get the best results whenever doing the smooth side first and then going back for the textured side. Because if you're trying to do the textured side and the smooth side's running around a little bit, you really have to kind of apply a little bit more pressure into the textured side. It takes a little bit more to get all of that adhered well. And if the other side is still not quite done as well, you're kind of moving it around a lot, the piece on the table, so it could rub it from the back side, that foil. So that's why I normally like to do the smooth side first, get that. It's a little simpler to do. It won't require as much movement as far as the the piece on the table. So you can kind of keep it in one spot a lot easier and just burnish that straight down. And even the smooth sides do have a little bit of a texture. It's not nearly as much. These are pretty much handmade products, this glass. It's rolled in a machine and everything, but it is a little bit of a variable process. So no matter what, it's never going to be, perfectly consistent. So just something to keep in mind. And we've got a few more pieces here. Doing one of the happy trees, as Bob Ross would say. If you like stained glass, you've probably seen that too. If you like art in general, probably seen that old Bob Ross show, painting all the happy trees. Now today, for the next step, we are going to be soldering, of course, and we are using a lead-free solder, which does require a bit of a hotter melting point than typical 60-40, which is not a huge deal. It's a little harder to work with, but I think it's worth it. But if you're not worried about it, you can definitely take proper precautions to protect yourself using nitrile gloves or something, so you're not touching the lead, too much in that solder. But if you're a little worried about it, just try out the lead-free solder, see how it goes. And this is our last little green piece. And then we've got the other side of the mountain. And we are ready to start soldering. And of course, before we start soldering, we have to do our little fitment check. See how our vinyl templates did us again today. can see in all the other videos, it really gets all that glass really tight together. And so here we are, the last piece with that little corner here. You see how a lot of that gets covered up with foil anyway? So it's not the end of the world if it breaks, because really it ends up getting all covered up anyway, but it will help just a little bit with the fitting of the glass altogether. And it'll also help not having to sort of fill that area with solder, which can be a little bit of a challenge in itself when you're trying to fill a big void with solder. Not the end of the world, but a little bit more challenging than if there's a surface, you know, a substrate in there of glass that you know, can fill that void, instead of trying to just drip a bunch of solder in there, a bunch of runny molten solder, which doesn't really exactly stay in one place when it's, you know, really hot like that. And with that, pretty much got this first piece all burnished. So now we're going to move this to the side. Go ahead and turn on our iron, and we're going to start putting all of our pieces down onto our pattern. Oops, there we are. There's our snowy mountain at night, of course, lit by the moonlight. All right, this is looking pretty good. All right. All right, this is coming out pretty nicely so far. So let me just make sure everything's in the right spot. I am pretty sure this goes right here. Yes, it does. Trying to make sure everything's pretty much in the right spot. And then we can go forth with the tack soldering, sort of tacking everything together and making sure we have everything in the way that we want it. And this is a pretty important step because this is pretty much what it's going to be. So you kind of want to make sure, take your time here. Make sure everything's the way you want it. We're definitely going to want for this thing to be pretty much straight on the bottom. That's how we have it in our pattern, so that's what we're going to want to do. What I might even do is grab my little ruler here and we can just kind of give ourselves a straight edge reference here. Push everything up to that straight edge. And see what everybody thinks about it. All right. Looks like we probably could have done a little bit better in a few spots here, but not bad, all things considered. Let's go ahead and take a close look here. Tell me what you think so far. And Mary Beth says it's a nice color layout. Appreciate that. I think it looks really good here. But I think we're definitely pretty much on the right track here. I think it's going to pretty much do exactly what we're looking for, and we can compare it to our other landscape that we did in the past. So what I think I'm going to do, got the iron heating up right now. I'm actually going to go ahead and turn it this way so you can see it a little bit better. I'll go ahead and solder it from the other side, like that. Okay. So what I like to do is wear some blue nitrile gloves. I'm going to go ahead and bring over our fume extractor with the corrugated tube here. Turn that on. Grab our gloves. Get our gloves on. We're going to be handling some chemicals here. All right. Get out our flux. Get out the lead-free. Now, when you kind of put the flux down here, you don't want to be accidentally moving your pieces around. So we're gonna just want to barely kind of tap this thing down. Make sure that we're not getting really any movement. Make sure we get a little bit of solder on all the pieces. And that way, like I said, we'll have no movement, which is what we want. We want for it to be the way we want it, the way we got it set up. So we got the iron heated up. Let's check it out. There we go. So we're just going to put little bits of solder at these joint areas. Trying to get this thing to be fully... Oops, we need a little bit more right here. And then once we have this all set up, we're going to remove that vinyl template because that hot flux, when it drips in there, can kind of melt it a little bit. So that's less than ideal. So we got this thing out of the way. So you can see it's holding together pretty good just from a few little tacks there. And so now we're just going to get the whole thing all fluxed up. And we are going to put a healthy bead on here. We're just trying to get it all soldered from one side to start. And then when the time comes, after we have done the edge beading, we will go ahead and do the final soldering on this side. Make sure to tin all the perimeter edges. Make sure we got plenty of flux there. Roll out a lot more solder. There we have it. So we've got the first side pretty much all soldered together. And at this point, I'm going to want to put on my heat-resistant gloves. And probably you only need one, but I like to use two, because why not? So we're going to flip this over. Now we want to decide where we're going to hang it. So we're also going to break out the wire. And I don't see a reason not to hang it right from this tip of the mountain there. So I think that's what we're going to do. Yeah. So we're going to make a little jump ring with our wire here. And then we're going to twist it into a bit of a braided cable. We want for this to be a pretty tight braided cable here. And when we solder it, it'll be really strong. That should work. Go ahead and cut this down. Our lead dikes. And we're going to want to put it pretty much right here into this seam, something like that. Now we're going to want to curve this to the curve of the mountain there. So I'm just going to take the grosiers, just do a little curve here. See how that looks. And actually these gloves are really kind of obstructive, but I think I can use this grosier. This is another pair of hands. Let's see. Yeah, that should work pretty good right there, just like that. Just trying to really match this thing up with the foil. So what I want to do is go ahead and flex everything up. I am also going to go ahead and flex up this little thing, our little wire here. Set the solder up so I can grab it with the iron. Grab a little bit here. And then I'm going to tack this into place. Got it in one spot. Oops, no I didn't. Thought I had it. Okay, I actually just filled it up a little bit with solder, and then I'm going to heat this up and kind of try to submerge it into that solder. There we go. So that's pretty much tacked right there. And then I can go through and try to tack it in a different spot. Trying to bend it to the right shape a little bit. We'll kind of push it down. And now we can solder that down nicely. Okay. Got that pretty good right there. There we go. So that worked out pretty good like that. So now we're going to want to go through and finish a nice bead on this side. So what I like to do is just kind of run it, sort of feed that solder from the back side. And you want it to be a nice rounded bead. You don't want it to look flat or sunken in. And depending how fast you're going might help or hurt your cause there. Sometimes when it gets really hot, you have to let it cool. And then go back and try to fix it up a little bit. You don't want to stay too long in the same spot. You can cause heat cracks. You can cause all sorts of issues. And especially on a tiny panel like this, you're sort of working in a small area. The heat is conducting from the backside too into the gloss. So you have to keep that in mind whenever you're doing these projects, that you don't want to be trying to stay in one spot for too long. because you can start cracking glass. You can start melting that adhesive with the copper foil. So what I think I'm going to actually do here is I'm going to tin all the edges, and then I'm going to probably see if I can tap a nice rounded bead all the way around here. There we go. Okay, so now we are going to just do a few taps here, trying to get this thing all smoothed out. This is the back side. I normally like to do the back side first and then do the front side last after edge beading. And thank y'all for the comments here, Connie and Mary. And Leo asked, what is the temperature of the iron set at? So this, I do not have a sort of temperature gauge or thermometer on this iron. You know, it's just a plug-in. So I'm not sure, to be honest with you. It gets hotter than that little Hakko iron with the temperature control. It gets hotter than that, because I know that one, it's really not hot enough to do the lead free with. I've tried it before and I just wasn't too happy with it. But the other one, it works perfectly with the 6040. And Mary Beth asked what flex I use. I'll grab that here in just a second and show you. Actually, you know, I pretty much just use whatever we have in stock at the time when I need more. But let me find the exact one I've got right here. Looks like this is Classic 100 Gel Flux. Oop, there we go. Classic 100 Gel Flux. So that's something we've got in stock right now. I don't have a problem with it. I think it works pretty good. Oops. Okay. I'm just going to go through, try to round this bead out nicely. And then we're going to go ahead and start to do some edge beading. There we go. So now this one is pretty much good on this side. I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to now do the edge beading. I'm going to put this iron up for a second. Grab the flex. We're going to go ahead and flex up the entire thing. And we've got a lot of drips and stuff all over it. Probably from when we tinned the edges. So there you go. So now, whenever I'm edge beading, I like to unroll a lot of this solder. Okay. And then I like to put it up like this so I can grab it with the iron. And I just kind of grab it with one hand and tap this thing all the way around until we have a nice rounded bead all the way around here. If it gets a little bit too runny, that means it's way too hot. You're either going to have to let it cool off, work on a different spot, or, you know, kind of tap it a little bit quicker. Take the heat away a little bit faster. And I know this is getting kind of close to the camera. I don't want to burn that camera. Kind of funny. Close up. And you kind of have to hold it at the right angle or else it'll sort of be really runny in the wrong direction here. So I like to just kind of tap it through. If you need more solder, just grab it from your little roll. Let me go ahead and switch it around like this. Now we've got some kind of wacky angles here. We're going to have to sort of be going back and forth. What I like to do is work from whatever I can get to the way I'm holding it, and then I'll switch it around the other way. So we got this circular piece. These are kind of the trickiest because you have to go all the way around, 360 degrees pretty much. And you got to kind of wait for it to dry or to solidify. Then you can kind of switch it around. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Just tapping it along until we get it to look the way we want it to. Kind of spinning it around. Make sure I didn't miss any of these mountain peaks. And Leo asked if instead of doing an edge bead, you wanted to use lead or zinc came, what size and would I use a U or an H? So it depends on the size of the panel. If you plan to use it as the finished border, for example, if you plan to hang it just like that without installing it into a wooden frame or something like that, then you are going to want to use the U channel. Okay. Now, if you are planning to install it into a different frame, like a window frame or a or a picture frame or whatever, then you can use the H, and the H has a little more adjustability because you can kind of trim it down if it's a little bit too big, for example. So everyone makes mistakes occasionally. So we use the H. All of our windows, we do nothing that's basically a sun catcher type in our studio. So there we use exclusively H pretty much, unless there's some weird reason we want to use the U channel, which is unusual. For all sun catchers, we pretty much almost always use the U. If it's a straight line like this bottom, I would recommend the zinc. But if you have all these kind of angles and stuff, the lead will be easier. It's less rigid, so it's a little bit weaker to, it's not as rigid, okay? So, if you can use zinc, if you're planning to use it as a finished border, number one, handling it with zinc instead of lead is more ideal. But also, lead is very malleable, and it will, bend and stuff a lot easier. So you're going to want to use zinc as much as possible. Now, if you have a circular panel, it might not be feasible to use zinc. So you might have to use lead. So those are kind of the main factors. You think of the qualities of the material. Lead is malleable, zinc is rigid. So if you need it to be malleable, use the lead. If you can get away with it, basically the more rigid type, then I would use it. Even some curves you can do with zinc, especially the really thin U channels. For small panels, you can use the little 1/4 inch channels, 1/4 inch wide channels. For a bigger panel, you might need the 1/2 inch, something like that. There's even a 3/8 in between. So I hope that pretty much answered your question. We've pretty much got this all finished up here. We just need to clean it up, and we are pretty much all done. So let me grab the favorite blue glass cleaner. Oops, and I'm having a hard time taking these gloves off. Let me grab my... They're a little bit sticky, or slippery, I mean. There we go. So I hope that everyone enjoyed this. We are pretty much at the tail end here. Just need to get this all cleaned up here. It's very fluxed up. And it's very warm right now. And this is the back side. We are going to turn over to the front side. Check out the finished product here. There we go. And I'm kind of doing a final check, make sure everything looks pretty good. A few things I'll want to touch up here. Got a little bubble looking thing right there. A little bit of a rough edge right here. There we go. Oh. There we go. All right, awesome, Leo. No problem. Happy to help. Right here towards the very end. And of course, before we get off today, we want to check out the other landscape that we did. And we can see the different, the difference between them. We can talk about that a little bit. Okay, so let me just change this to be more like this. All right, so on our first landscape, we have this one where we used white for the moon, green and blue, whereas here we used the clear for the moon, and it's got the brown background, so you can it looks brown like that, but it will, when you have it on a different background, it'll kind of look a lot more like a white, clearish look. And so we've got the green, of course, for the trees, and we used blue and gray for the mountainside. We didn't have a mountain over here, but we used blue for water. So you could use a similar blue if you wanted, but I thought that a light blue would look good, kind of like for a snowy mountain. So I hope that everyone enjoyed this. And again, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you joining us. Check out the Stained Glass Mastery Light community, where we have tons of free resources and a great community of artists. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week on the week 4 for we've got the mushroom stained glass. So that'll be a fun one too. Thank you very much.